Beamy feminist, 24 years old, working as a barista in one of those slightly too expensive coffee shops downtown. The kind of place where people pay $7 for oat milk and a sprinkle of cinnamon. I don't hate it. The hours are okay, the tips are decent, and I get to work with my best friend, Megan. Megan and I are pretty much on the same page about everything. We live together in a small apartment that's way too expensive for what it is. We spend most of our free time complaining about work, watching reality TV, and scrolling through Twitter. We both considered ourselves feminists, not the crazy, angry kind you see in compilations, but just normal. The kind that knows men have it easier and that the world is basically set up for them to win. We weren't asking for much, just basic equality and for guys to not be walking red flags. Anyway, about a year ago, maybe a bit more, we were both single. We'd gotten out of mediocre relationships and were ready to get back out there, which, of course, meant downloading all the usual dating apps. Tinder, Hinge, Bumble, you name it. Our evenings became a routine. Make dinner, sit on the couch, and just swipe for hours. It was kind of a joke, but we were also serious about it. We'd show each other profiles, laughing at the guys holding up fish or the ones whose entire personality was The Office. We had our standards. No one shorter than 6 foot. Has to have a real job, not entrepreneur. Good photos. A bio that isn't just a list of emojis. The first couple of months were standard dating app stuff. A lot of ghosting, weird conversations that went nowhere, a few dates that were just painfully awkward. Nothing out of the ordinary. It was just the cost of doing business, you know? You had to sift through a lot of dirt to find one tiny speck of gold. That was our philosophy. Then things started to get weird. It began subtly. I don't even remember the first time it happened exactly. I think it was last fall. The weather was starting to get cold. I matched with this guy who seemed promising, an architect or something like that. He was handsome. We had a good back-and-forth chat for a few days. We decided to meet up for a quick coffee on a weekday afternoon. My treat, since I got the employee discount. We meet up. He looks like his pictures, which is a good start. The conversation is fine, not amazing, but not terrible. The usual first date stuff. What do you do? Where are you from? What do you do for fun? I'm telling him a story about a ridiculously complicated drink order from work that morning, and I make some offhand comment, something like, "It's always the guys in suits who are the most demanding classic male entitlement, you know?" I said it as a joke. I laughed. He didn't. He just kind of stared into his cup. A little nod. The vibe immediately shifted. It was like a light switch went off. The conversation became stilted. One-word answers from his end. I tried to get it back on track, asked him about his work. He talked about it for a minute, but his eyes were already scanning the room, looking at the door. He finished his coffee in 2 big gulps. It must have still been hot. Put the ceramic cup down with a loud clink. "Well, it was really nice to meet you, Haley." I was confused. "Oh, you have to go?" "Yeah, I've got an early start tomorrow. Long day ahead." It was 4 p.m. He stood up, gave a polite but very distant smile, and just walked out. The whole thing lasted, I don't know, maybe 15 minutes, tops. I just sat there, feeling my face get hot with embarrassment. What the hell was that? Did I have something in my teeth? Did I say something wrong? I replayed the conversation in my head. It had to be the male entitlement comment. But it was a joke. A tiny, harmless joke. I went home and told Megan about it. She got instantly furious on my behalf. Her take was that his masculine ego was just too fragile to handle even a lighthearted criticism. He was probably one of those guys who secretly hated women but pretended to be normal. A classic case of toxic masculinity. He couldn't handle a strong, outspoken woman. I had dodged a massive bullet. Her logic made perfect sense to me. It fit with everything we believed, so I brushed it off. His loss. I was too good for him anyway. We ordered pizza and made fun of his profile pictures. A few weeks later, it happened again. Different guy. This one worked in finance. The date was at a bar this time, not a coffee shop. A bit more formal. Things seemed to be going well for the first 20 minutes. We were actually laughing. Then the topic of past relationships came up. I was honest. I told him my last boyfriend was nice, but incredibly passive. I explained that I had to plan everything, make all the decisions, and that I was tired of having to be the man in the relationship. I said I was looking for a guy who could actually take the lead. His face did the exact same thing the architect's face did. The smile vanished. It was replaced by this neutral, analytical expression. He leaned back in his chair. He asked a few follow-up questions. So, you had to make all the plans? He never had an opinion on things? It felt less like a conversation and more like an interrogation. A minute later, he checked his phone. Oh man, I'm so sorry. I completely forgot. I have to jump on a work call. I need to get going. He pulled out his wallet, dropped a 20 on the table for his $7 beer, said, "Nice meeting you," and was gone before I could even process it. Another one. Vanished into thin air. This time, Megan and I came up with a new theory. He was intimidated. He heard, "I want a man who can take the lead," and realized he wasn't man enough for the job. He was a coward who couldn't handle the pressure of dating a woman who knows what she wants. Again, it made sense. It felt right. It was always a problem with them, their egos, their insecurities, their toxicity. It couldn't possibly be me. This became the pattern for the next 6 months. I'd go on a date. The first 15-20 minutes would be fine. Then I'd say something I thought was completely normal. I'd joke about the wage gap. I'd ask what his 5-year plan was. I'd mention that I expected the guy to pay on the first date because it's just tradition. I'd talk about how frustrating it is when men don't do their share of the emotional labor. Each and every time, the same result. The switch would flip. The eyes would glaze over. The polite, generic excuse would come out. I have an early morning. I forgot I had to let my dog out. My roommate just texted me. He locked himself out. And poof, gone. They always paid for their own stuff, sometimes for mine too, and left. No drama, no argument, just a clean, efficient exit. It was the efficiency that was starting to get to me. It felt so cold, so practiced. Megan was experiencing it too, though not as often as I was. Her dates would sometimes last an hour before the guy bailed. She was more confrontational about it. She'd actually call them out. "Where are you going? Our date isn't over." They'd just shrug and say, "It is for me," and leave. Her rage fueled mine. Our apartment became an echo chamber of righteous anger. We'd spend hours dissecting every little detail of these failed dates. We'd screenshot their profiles and send them to our group chats to be torn apart. We compiled a whole dictionary of male flaws, fragile egos, weaponized incompetence, fear of commitment, emotional immaturity. We were experts. We were scholars of modern male dysfunction. But deep down, a little seed of doubt was starting to grow in my mind. At first, it was easy to ignore. But when you're the common denominator in a dozen failed experiments, you have to start wondering about the constant. And the constant was me. Was I the problem? I'd bring this up to Megan in moments of weakness. Maybe I'm being too picky? Maybe I'm coming on too strong. She'd immediately shut it down. "Don't you dare blame yourself, Haley. That's what the patriarchy wants you to do. It's not your job to shrink yourself to make some man feel comfortable. If they can't handle you at your most authentic, they don't deserve you at all." And I'd believe her. Because I wanted to. Because the alternative was too painful to consider. The alternative meant that my authenticity was the problem. The breaking point came on a Tuesday night. I remember because it was raining. I had a date with a guy named Matt. He was a paramedic. I thought, okay, this guy has to be different. He saves lives for a living. He can't be some fragile, insecure man-child. We met at a quiet pub, and for the first time in a long time, it felt good. We talked for almost 25 minutes, a new record. We were laughing. He had a great sense of humor. He told me a crazy story about a call he went on. I was actually starting to relax. I was letting my guard down. I thought, maybe this is it. Maybe this is the normal guy I've been looking for. And then I did it. I got comfortable. He was talking about how stressful his job is. And I said, yeah, I can't even imagine. It's so brave. It's just a shame that men are taught to bottle up all their emotions. It leads to so much toxic behavior. I said it with the best of intentions. I was trying to be empathetic. I was trying to show that I was one of the good ones who understood male problems. I watched his face, and the switch flipped. It was the most dramatic one I'd ever seen. It was like a mask fell off, or rather, a mask was put on. All the warmth, all the humor, gone in an instant, replaced by a blank, polite slate. My heart sank. I knew what was coming. He took a slow sip of his water. He placed the glass down on the coaster with perfect precision. He looked me right in the eye. No anger, no emotion at all. It was just observation. You know, he said, his voice completely flat. I think we're just looking for different things. He stood up. Thanks for the drink. Take care of yourself. And he walked out of the pub into the rain. 25 minutes. A new personal best, followed by the fastest rejection yet. I didn't even have the energy to be angry. I just felt empty, hollowed out. I sat there for another 10 minutes, just staring at the empty chair opposite me. I paid the bill and walked out into the rain. I didn't have an umbrella. I didn't care. I got to my car, soaked and cold, and just sat there in the driver's seat. The little echo chamber Megan and I had built felt a million miles away. Her words, her theories, they all sounded like noise. It wasn't working. Something was fundamentally broken, and I didn't know what it was. I couldn't call Megan. I didn't want to hear her righteous anger. I didn't want to hear that I dodged another bullet. I felt like I was the one firing the gun at my own feet over and over again. There was only one other person I could think of to call. Someone completely outside of my world. Someone who would give me a straight answer, no matter how much it hurt. My older brother, Liam. Liam is different from me. He's a few years older, manages a warehouse for some big shipping company. He's quiet, practical. He doesn't do social media. He thinks Twitter is a mental illness. We were never super close, but he's always been there. We had a big falling out a couple of years ago. He went through a horrible breakup with his long-term girlfriend, the one we all thought he was going to marry. It was messy. She took everything. The apartment they shared, the dog, most of his savings. I took her side. I told him he probably hadn't been emotionally available enough for her, that he needed to look at his own behavior. Megan and I had talked about it for weeks. It was a textbook example of a woman freeing herself from a relationship that wasn't serving her. He never forgave me for that. We still talked at holidays, but it was strained. He put up a wall. I knew calling him was a bad idea, but I was desperate. I needed a different perspective. I needed to hear something, anything, other than Megan's voice. So I pulled my phone out. My hands were shaking a little. I found his contact and hit the call button. It rang once, twice. I was about to hang up. Then he answered. Haley? His voice was flat, surprised to be hearing from me. Is everything okay? Hey, I said, my voice sounding small and weak. Are you busy? There was a pause on the other end. I could hear the faint sound of a TV in the background. Not really, just watching the game. What's up? I didn't know where to start. How do you even begin to explain the soul-crushing pattern of the last 6 months? I just had a really bad date. I managed to get out, the words catching in my throat. I expected a generic brotherly response. Oh, sorry to hear that. or something equally non-committal. Instead, he was silent for a moment. "Let me guess," he finally said, his voice completely devoid of sympathy. "He left after 20 minutes?" I was so stunned I couldn't speak. The rain was drumming on the roof of my car, and it felt like the world had just stopped. How did you know that?" I heard him let out a long, tired sigh, the kind of sigh that holds years of frustration. "Because it's what they're all doing now, Haley. It's the new normal. Get in, get out, cut your losses." "What are you talking about? What losses? A cup of coffee?" My anger was starting to come back, a familiar defense mechanism. "You really don't get it, do you?" he said. It wasn't a question. It was a statement of fact. "No, I don't." I was almost shouting now, the frustration pouring out of me. "I don't get why every guy I meet acts like he's allergic to a real conversation. I don't get why they run away the second you say something they don't like. It's cowardly. It's immature." "It's not cowardly," he said, his voice suddenly sharp and clear, cutting through my rant. "It's efficient. It's risk management." I scoffed. "Risk management? What risk? That I'm not going to sleep with them on the first date?" "God, no. It's so much bigger than that," he said. And for the first time, I heard a real, raw emotion in his voice. It was bitterness, deep, profound bitterness. "Listen to me. Just shut up and listen for 5 minutes. You called me, so you're going to hear this." I went quiet. "You and your friends, you sit around and you talk about toxic masculinity and red flags, like you invented the concept. You think you're the only ones vetting people? You think men are just dumb apes running on instinct, hoping to get lucky?" He paused, letting the questions hang in the air. "Every guy you've met, especially the ones with good jobs and something to lose, they're not on a date with you. They're conducting an interview. They're running a background check. They're miners, walking into a tunnel with a canary. And the second that bird stops singing, they are out of there before the whole thing collapses on them." "A canary? What are you even saying?" "I'm saying they're looking for the warning signs," he explained, his voice dangerously calm. "And you, Haley, from the sound of it, you're not just a warning sign. You're a one-woman fireworks display of them." That one hurt. It hit me right in the chest, knocking the wind out of me. I wanted to hang up. I wanted to scream at him. But I didn't. I just listened. "Let me break it down for you in terms you might understand. Time. A guy who works a demanding job doesn't have a lot of it. Why would he waste 2 hours on a dinner date when he can figure out in 15 minutes over coffee that you're not compatible?" "Not compatible? How can he know that so fast?" "Oh, it's easy," Liam said with a humorless laugh. "You make a joke about male entitlement. Canary number 1. He's thinking, okay, so she already has a negative view of men in general. She sees things through a lens of gender politics. Not a great start. You tell him you want a man to take the lead because your ex was too passive. Canary number 2. He hears, I have a list of contradictory expectations. I want you to be a leader, but I'll also probably resent you for it later and call it toxic. Red flag. You ask him about his 5-year plan or how much he makes. Canary number 3, 4, and 5. He's not thinking, oh, she's interested in my future. He's thinking, she's screening me based on my provider potential. This is a transaction. It's not romantic. It's an audit. Every word was a gut punch. He was listing my greatest hits. He was narrating my failed dates with terrifying accuracy. And the big one, he continued, his voice dropping a little, the one that makes them run for the hills. You mentioned toxic masculinity or men bottling up emotions. I was trying to be nice, I protested weakly. I was trying to show I understood. You don't understand, he shot back. What he hears isn't empathy. What he hears is that you've already diagnosed him. You've put him in a box. He knows that any time he has a bad day, or gets angry, or disagrees with you, You're going to psychoanalyze him with terms you learned on social media. He knows that his natural male behavior will be constantly pathologized. It's a trap. And the only winning move is not to play. I was speechless. My entire worldview, the one so carefully constructed by Megan and our online bubble, was crumbling in real time. This isn't about a $7 coffee. Liam's voice was getting more intense. It's about avoiding years of misery. It's about avoiding a relationship where you're constantly walking on eggshells. It's about avoiding a breakup where you lose everything you've ever worked for. Then his voice broke. Just for a second. It's about avoiding what happened to me. And there it was. The reason for all this venom. The reason for his cold, hard logic. You remember Catherine, don't you, Haley? You remember how you told me it was my fault? That I wasn't emotionally available? That she was brave for leaving me? I couldn't say anything. I felt shame wash over me, cold and heavy. I gave that woman 5 years of my life. I paid for that apartment. I worked overtime for 3 years so she could start her little online business that never made a dime. And when it was over, I was the villain. I was the emotionally stunted man who was holding her back. Your friend Megan even wrote a post about it, remember? About the courage to leave a toxic partner. Liam, no more. I learned my lesson. I learned it the hard way. And a lot of other guys are learning it too. They're learning it from their divorced fathers, from their friends who get raked over the coals, from stories they read online. The game is rigged. And when you know the game is rigged, you stop playing. Or you learn to fold your hand the second you see you've got bad cards. So what? I finally whispered. That's it? Men are just giving up? Not giving up, he corrected me. They're being smart. They're optimizing. They're protecting themselves. They've realized that the potential reward of a long-term relationship is no longer worth the catastrophic risk. The risk of financial ruin, the risk of emotional devastation, the risk of having your reputation destroyed over nothing. He took a deep breath. That guy who walked out on you tonight, the paramedic, you didn't just insult him with your pop psychology. You showed him, in 25 minutes, that a relationship with you would be exhausting, that you'd be a constant source of judgment and drama. And he's a guy who deals with real life and death drama all day. The last thing he wants is to come home to more of it. So he made a business decision. He cut his losses and went home to get some peace. And honestly, I don't blame him. We sat in silence for a full minute after that. The only sound was the rain and the quiet crackle of the phone line. Everything he said was clicking into place. The sudden exits, the polite but cold efficiency, the blank expressions. It wasn't malice. It wasn't fear of strong women. It was a cost-benefit analysis. It was a retreat. They weren't running away from me because they were weak. They were running away from me because they saw me as a liability, a bad investment. That thought was 1,000 times more painful than thinking they were just intimidated. I have to go, I finally said. Yeah, he said, his voice back to its usual tired tone. Okay. Liam? Yeah? I'm sorry. About Catherine. I was wrong. There was another long pause. I know, he said, and hung up. I sat in my car for I don't know how long. The rain had stopped. I felt like I had been asleep for years and had just been shaken awake. All the anger I had felt was gone. All the self-righteousness had evaporated. All that was left was a profound sense of clarity. And it was devastating. Megan's words, her tweets, her whole philosophy. It was all a lie, a comfortable lie we told ourselves so we wouldn't have to look at our own part in the problem. We weren't the heroes of our stories. We weren't the victims. We were the canaries. We were the red flags. We were the risk they weren't willing to take. The next morning at work felt different. I was quiet. Megan was in her usual mode, complaining about a guy on Hinge who had the audacity to ask for her Snapchat after 3 messages. "The absolute nerve," she said, steaming milk for a latte. "Men are just so transactional, you know? They just want one thing." I looked at her, really looked at her, and for the first time, I didn't see a friend venting. I saw a person living in a bubble, completely oblivious to the reality of the world she was so angry at. She was looking for a fight that the other side had already forfeited. "Are you okay?" she asked, noticing my silence. "You're being weird." I forced a small smile. "Just tired," I said. "Was it the date last night? Another loser, I bet. You need to write him a scathing review on that Are We Dating the Same Guy group." I thought about the paramedic, about the look on his face, the complete and total shutdown. He wasn't a loser. He was a man who had made a rational choice. "No," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "He was fine." Megan stared at me, confused. "Fine? He walked out on you after 25 minutes. I took a deep breath, picking up a cloth to wipe down the counter. The counter was already clean. I just needed something to do with my hands. "Yeah," I said, looking out the coffee shop window at the people walking by on the street. Men and women, all heading somewhere, all living their own lives, all playing their own games. Maybe he was right to